Haribol, greetings everyone. So today, just wanted to share a number of thoughts and feelings about our situation and how Krishna consciousness can help us in our lives. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about the fact that whatever great and cultured persons do, the general population runs to imitate. The people naturally follow what they learn from leaders. That's Bhagavad Gita 3:21. So we have a wonderful example, for instance, in our own country, South Africa, of Nelson Mandela, having spent 27 years in prison and doing hard labor. What happened? He came out of prison and began to reconcile. He forgave those that caused him so much suffering. So of course that was a wonderful example, and people in general followed that example to a greater or lesser extent, in the sense that we became the rainbow nation. There was reconciliation, apartheid was broken apart, taken down, and people did not resort to violence. So civil war was saved. We were saved from civil war by the great example of Nelson Mandela. And we can also be reminded that spiritual life begins with ahimsa, with non-violence. Just like I'm very pleased to see that the new president of Brazil, President Lula, has stopped this setting fire to the Amazon, and in that way saving so many lives of innocent forest creatures. So this is a good example. Bhagavad Gita is very specific also about who is the great soul. Who is the great soul? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam janmanam ante gyanavan mam prapajate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sadulabha. Bahunam, after many births, he who is actually wise surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that be. Such a great soul is very rare. So here is this wonderful example of the Mahatma, the great soul. And what is his qualification? His qualification is that he surrenders to Krishna. So we see in our society, of course, everybody is wanting to be happy. This is natural. But our society is not teaching us how to be happy. That is the problem. We don't have happiness education. What is the proof of that? The proof of that is that there's so much depression, there's so much conflict, there's so much dissatisfaction, crime, and so on. This is indicating that people are not satisfied, not happy. So there may be so much material wealth, but in terms of spiritual wealth, there is poverty. People are not receiving spiritual education. Also, people want to be secure, putting up all kinds of security systems, thinking this will make us secure and happy. Big defense systems, one nation to another, nuclear arms and so forth. But this is all material. This cannot actually bring security and happiness to the soul. What we need is spiritual security. And that spiritual security also is not being taught, we are not giving that, receiving that education. Spiritual security. Of course, spiritual security means that I take care of the soul, I feed the soul. They give that lovely example of the canary in the cage. Here comes a flyover, just a second. The canary in the cage. All right, so you've got a lovely canary in the cage, and what do? You clean the cage. Every day you put new paint on the cage, but you don't feed the canary. How's that going to help? The canary will be very sick, very unhappy. So in the same way, we are the soul inside this body, which is a cage. So we may take care of the body, the cage, get a new suntan and new clothes and a new manicure and this and that. But we neglect the canary, the soul inside. So obviously that soul is not happy. But Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that happiness comes from within. Happiness comes from within, not from outside. It cannot be found by accumulating, spending, enjoying our senses. Why? Because that is simply taking care or trying to take care of the body, the cage. But the soul is spiritual, non-material, and requires spiritual food, spiritual, how can you say, nourishment. And where does that come from? It comes from the Supreme Spirit, Sri Krishna himself. That nourishment, of course, is his love, his care, his great concern for us. And in turn, as we awaken to that spiritual identity and begin to engage in loving service, we give our energy, our attention to engaging in his loving service, then we feel this nourishment, this security, and that, of course, is eternal, eternal, eternal. Death will not come to end that security or put an end to that spiritual nourishment, that spiritual experience of being nourished and maintained and fulfilled is eternal, eternal. As it says in Gita that whatever progress we make on this path, there's no loss or diminution, no loss or diminution. So in this way we can get our focus. Of course we live in a very tumultuous, disturbed world, but that is all external. But the inner life, the spiritual life, is something which is quite separate, quite independent of the external world. Of course, we prefer to live in a nice external world as well, but we don't. We live in Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the Iron Age. That's where we are. So to make the best use of the bad bargain, as they say, we need to just apply ourselves daily with humility to following the process of Bhakti Yoga as taught by the great souls under their guidance, hearing and chanting about Krishna, remembering, praying, and so forth. And in this way make steady progress. We want to make steady progress and not be confused. We have a clear vision as to what is our purpose, what is our goal, and how to achieve it. So wishing everyone the unlimited blessings of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Hari Bol.